NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest in your not a great start to the season Brooklyn Nets news. All right, look, let's dive right in. Let's get this over with. The Nets are 1-4. Obviously, that's not what I think any Net fan wants. That's not really what I want, though. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not overly surprised at this point. You look at the first 5 games that the Nets had, were all against playoff teams. 2 of them were against teams that I personally feel are at the same level, if not better than the Nets, in the Grizzlies and the Bucks. So just the way the Nets play with, the, how could I put this nicely, lack of urgency that they tend to play with a lot. It just doesn't shock me. All 4 of those games, 5 of those games really didn't shock me. I was glad that they did beat the Raptors because to me that was the team that the Nets were definitely a lot better than. The Pelicans I think the Pelicans are proving in the first game of the year just how good they really could be. There were a lot of people's sleeper team this year, and I think they're going to be a lot like the Grizzlies were last year, how the Grizzlies were just this very impressive, complete team that people kind of overlooked. So I wasn't surprised by that, and I wasn't really surprised by the Bucks loss, and I wasn't really surprised by the Grizzlies loss. And really, I wasn't really that surprised by the Mavs loss because I also think the Mavs are a very good team. And even though, as I just said before, I think that the Nets are better than all those teams except for really the Bucks and at the same level as the Grizzlies, like I said, this 1-4 start does not shock me because of the nature of the toughness and the fact that historically this Nets team, these players, they just come out with a little bit of lack of urgency. So I'm not surprised. What I am surprised, though, is really how bad this team is defensively. Like, we see the same issues with this team that we've had in the past, right? All offense, no defense. No ability to rebound the ball at all. And turnover after turnover after turnover. Can someone tell Kevin Durant he can't dribble? I'm sorry. I touched upon this before in other NetsBoy episodes. Kevin Durant, for a 6'11 guy, has very good ball handling skills. But comparatively to everyone else, they're just average at best. And he tries, I've never seen a guy get the ball stripped so many times. It's obviously the way to guard Kevin Durant. And I think the teams have picked up on that. It's very hard to actually block him and contest him well. Your best bet is to just try to swipe down and strip the ball, and he does a terrible job at protecting the ball. And it actually has to do with how he shoots. If you look how Kevin Durant shoots, he actually has a very front-forward shot in which he brings the ball right above his head, square, and shoots it. But when your release is like that, you come up right up in the middle, and he brings the ball right up, right where it's easy for someone to swipe at. And that's why you see these turnovers. He also then tries to do these dribble moves that he's just not capable of doing, and he'll dribble it off his leg. I don't know how many times I've seen a guy dribble the ball off his leg when there was nothing around him, no defender that's really putting a lot of pressure. So someone just tell Kevin Durant to stop dribbling, all right? Stop dribbling, bro. Just do your thing. Get to your spots, do your mid-range jump shot, do your threes, do your post-ups, do your thing. Stop trying to dribble through people like you're Kyrie Irving because you're not. Because, Kevin Durant's turnovers are ridiculous. He's averaging, almost 5 a game, I think. Ben Simmons' turnovers really aren't that great. Ben Simmons is fouling too many people. And, look, that's something else. I don't see this great defensive appeal of Ben Simmons. Listen, it's early on. I understand he hasn't played in, 2 years. But I don't see it. All we were talked about is how this guy's one of the best defenders in the league, his elite defensive abilities, how people voted for him to be Defensive Player of the Year. And, look, he is not a bad defender. I think in the preseason he guarded Giannis very well, and I think he has really good defensive intangibles. But other than stealing the ball, because he's very good at intercepting and pass, anticipation, and stripping the ball. Other than stealing the ball, I don't think he's that special. I think Royce O'Neal's a better defender than he is, because Royce O'Neal seems to be more physical, gets more physical with them. And now in Ben Simmons' defense, as we've seen, when he gets physical, the refs are calling foul calls, which is weird. But I don't know. I don't think Ben Simmons is a great shot contester. I don't think he's that strong where he can really compete on the inside. I do think he has very good lateral quickness for someone who's 6'10". That's obviously an appeal for a good defender. And I'm not trying to say he's not a good defender. I'm just saying I don't see this elite level defense that people been raving about this guy for so long. So, little disappointed about that and shocked about that. And it's just very obvious what the problems are with this Nets team, and it's more of the same. They can't rebound, they can't play defense, they turn the ball over too much, and Steve Nash is a terrible coach. The same 4 issues that this team has dealt with the last couple seasons are happening again. And I don't know if it's ever going to change. I think that this is just kind of what this team's going to be. And unless they can at least address some of those 4 factors, then I don't know how this team is really going to be when it's all said and done. The Eastern Conference is too deep to be turning the ball over 20 times a game. The Eastern Conference is too deep and tough to be out-rebounded by 10 or 15 rebounds. It's too tough to be, giving up 120 points like that. Like it's too tough to just be a dumb cheerleader on the sidelines, making zero adjustments at all. I mean, a real coach would have seen what Luka Doncic and the Mavs were doing in that Mavs game, and stopped switching. This switch defense is the Achilles heel of the Nets. It's supposed to be the greatest. Oh, well, they got Nick Claxton. He can switch 1 through 5. Ben Simmons, switch 1 through 5. KD can switch 1 through 5. But you know what also happens? Kyrie Irving and Patty Mills have to switch then. And all the Mavs were doing, especially in that overtime, was setting picks and knowing that the dumb Nets, Steve Nash's great switching philosophy, was just going to switch, and Kyrie was going to be guarding Luka Doncic. And I'm sorry. Kyrie is not an awful defender, but he is not a big guy. And Luka Doncic had his way. And what did that make the Nets do? Bring the double team. Cheat off the help. Well, what happens? It's basketball one-on-one. When a double team comes or a player cheats off their man, someone's open. And when you have a great player like Luka Doncic, he makes the right play and finds the right guy, and they hit the open shot, or they make the right play, or they slash to the basket, or the Nets don't actually help, and Luka goes one-on-one, posting up with Kyrie Irving and scores. It was just so clear. And all I was saying to myself was, stop switching. Just stop switching. Fight through the screen. Luka was not looking to drive. He was looking to post up because he knew. So when the pick came, instead of switching, you do a short switch in which you switch just to guard the basket, and then you quickly switch back. And if you're afraid of that, you do a defensive rotation where the help defenders on the other side come around, and like everyone does like a little kind of like rotation of their players. That's what this defense should be. If you're this versatile of a defensive team with versatile defensive players, instead of switching, you should constantly be revolving and rotating each man and make the offense pick up on that and make the right pass that way. Because the offense is only going to have about a second or two to analyze what's happening and find the right player and find the right pass. When you do the slow motion cheat, which is the dumbest defense in the world, you're hedging. This hedge defense, the help man coming in, inching in, you're allowing Luka to figure out who's going to be open. If you blitz him, that puts more pressure on him. He's got to make a split-second decision to pass the ball. And if he makes the wrong decision, you have a turnover. But no, this hedging defense, this illogical hybrid switch / over-collapsing defense that Steve Nash and the Nets run, it is awful. And how can I see it and Steve Nash can't? I don't get it. It's frustrating. And, I don't know if it's going to change. If Steve Nash is the coach, I don't know if the defense is going to change. The turnovers, I hope they can change. The rebounding, if everyone just buckles down and goes for the boards, including Kevin Durant, maybe that can be addressed. But I really don't know about this defense. I don't, unless they stop overcommitting to help defense and just rely on each other. I mean, this team is built for defense. They have so many supposedly good defensive players on this team, yet they still are giving up over 120 points a game. Granted, it's been 5 games, but it's just frustrating. And the more and more and more I see what happened these first 5 games, the more and more I just once again have to bring up the clear disadvantage the Nets have, and that is they just don't have enough size. I mentioned it in the beginning, like a couple episodes ago over the offseason. I said I was so shocked how the Nets are so okay with going with just Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe and Ben Simmons and Markieff Morris as their center depth. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You can see that teams like the Pelicans, right, with Valanciunas, teams like the Grizzlies with Steven Adams, right, teams that have that bulk, teams like the Bucks with Giannis and Brook Lopez, just how much of a presence they had down below that changed everything, not just offensively for the Nets, but even defensively, because those big bodies were there competing with them. It's clear. The Nets need a true big. Claxton, I love Claxton. We all know I'm a huge Nicholas Claxton fan. He is not a good big when it comes to getting in there and getting physical. Claxton would be good if you had another backup who's more of a bruiser. Day'Ron Sharpe, I do believe, could eventually develop into that, but the guy is 21 years old. He's still raw. He doesn't have the physicality yet at the same level. I mean, Dwight Howard is just sitting on the sideline somewhere, or who knows where he is, thinking about joining the WWE, and is just sitting there. And he could make such a difference. I don't get it. Obviously, I'm not there behind the scenes. Maybe the Nets offered him something and he didn't like it. I don't know, but it just doesn't make any sense. And the Nets' solution is Markieff Morris, who we didn't see because of personal reasons, and then their next option is Watanabe. Watanabe. Yeah. When I slapped my hand, I accidentally stopped the video. Whatever. That's how angry I'm getting. That's why I just cut off and cut to this. Sorry, everyone. But Watanabe is like all of a sudden in the rotation. And look, I don't have a problem with him, but is he the solution to the Nets' big troubles? The answer is no. So when it's all said and done, they need another big, whether it's Dwight Howard or somebody else, or it's just so clear. I mean, it's times like this, I just, once again, look back at that terrible James Harden trade and the fact that the Nets lost Jarrett Allen. Just imagine if Jarrett Allen was on this Brooklyn Nets team still. Forget about Karis LeVert, even though I love that guy too, and Dinwiddie and all of them. Just imagine just Jarrett Allen and Nicholas Claxton. Imagine if that is your center depth. Allen would start and Claxton coming off the bench. That would be phenomenal. That would be incredible. Might stun a little bit of Claxton's growth, but at the same time, the defensive presence and rebounding of Allen is exactly what this Nets team needs. And that's what's so frustrating. They had a guy on their team who could do all these things, but because of James Harden, I always told you he was going to be the end of this team. Now the Nets are back to square one. And remember, this is why the Nets made the move that they did when they got Ben Simmons and they brought in Andre Drummond to fill this void. But Andre Drummond defensively was not that great. He was just a good rebounder, and then he went off and signed with the Bulls. So he's gone. So here the Nets are again. Same problems, same issues, and it's just very, very frustrating. Like I said, the same 4 issues that they had in the past, they're showing again. But despite that solid 15 minutes of complaining, I will say this. It's only 5 games. It's still very early on. The Nets are still figuring this out with Ben Simmons. They're not fully healthy. Seth Curry has yet to play. Joe Harris had missed a game or two already. TJ Warren hasn't played yet. Markieff Morris missed some time. This Nets team has not yet been whole. And I do believe that better times are going to come for this Nets team. They played 5 really good teams, in my opinion, and 5 teams that did not have a lot of turnover with their teams and their personnel. They've kind of been the same team for the last couple of years. Continuity is a huge thing in the NBA, and I think that's what we're seeing here. I will reevaluate my opinion of this team come around Christmas time when the Nets are about 20 games in. But for now, it doesn't look great, but it's still not the end of the world because it is just 5 games in. So now, let's wrap up this episode by looking at the next couple games for the Nets. So they currently have a home and home against the Pacers. No, it's not a home and home. They just play the Pacers twice, which is a little weird. But I think that happened last year too. Look, Pacers are one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Nets got to win both those games, all right? Just got to win both those games. Then they got the Bulls. Bulls are a team that is very good, but the Nets are better than and should win that game as well. Then the Wizards, I mean, a respectable team, but nothing special. They just really got Bradley Beal. And then the Hornets, same thing, respectable team, but nothing special before playing the Mavericks. So before the Mavericks game, Pacers, Bulls, Wizards, Hornets. The next 5 games, I'm sorry, the Nets should win all 5 of those. And if the Nets win all 5 of those, all of a sudden they're 6-4, and we're going to look at this season in a completely different different light. Like, we'll be like, oh, this is what we expected. I'm obviously always going to give a slip game, so I do think a 4-1 stretch the next 5 games is possible. But if that's the case, the Nets are going to be 500 at 5-5, and once again, you feel better about this year. But this is the key. This is the key stretch. These are all very winnable games for the Nets, the next 5 games. And anything worse than 4-1, I would start getting angry and frustrated with this team because then that means these same issues that I just talked about are still happening. But I think the 4-1 is more than possible. I think 5-0 is very possible. And they just got to start figuring this out and get a little better. I will say this, the Mavs game, the team did look better. They just got outplayed and outcoached down the stretch, but, you know, that happens. So, but we'll see what happens. All right. That's the end of this NetsBoy episode. Let me know what you guys think about everything. If you agree with me about the 4 major issues of the Nets, you know, defense, turnovers, rebounding, and coaching, 4 major issues. If you agree that this hybrid defense that they do is just wrong, if you agree that they still lack that interior depth that they need, and if you also agree with me that it's as bad as it is right now, it's not really the end of the world because it's still so early on in the year. Let me know what you guys think about everything. And until then, this is NetsBoy just saying, let's see what happens, and signing off.